Hello? Are you able to hear me? Hello? 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 Are you able to hear me? Hello?
If you're not going from top to bottom, it's a little confusing for me. So where are you doing it?
Yeah, the list here.
Okay, go ahead now. Okay.
I guess I'm thinking not looking at your things and the videos and right.
Actually, we're looking at it there. They need to unmute from their side. If you're called, please unmute from your side.
to see the presentations. People via YouTube and joining Zoom should be able to see shared screens.
Okay,
Thank you for your understanding.
thank you so much, staff. All right, let us reconvene. Again, we are going to try public comments. We know that we now work technically. So staff, let's start with the list on public comment again. I will reset the count. Can we raise hands in the public comment space? Again, public comment is about any item that is not on the agenda. Thank you. Are we ready? Okay.
I was wondering where that woman was.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. James again.
Aram, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Aaron, you've been
There,
unmuted.
I see that I'm now on. I just hit the unmute button. Are you able to hear me?
We are able to hear you loud and clear. Thank you, Mr. James.
Okay, so this is a letter that I wrote. The Daily Post was kind enough to publish it on Monday, November 13th, 2023. It's called Ceasefire Now. The clock is not going, so I'm not going to be able to figure out when my time's up. Thank you very much. I'm a 74-year-old Jewish man, and the more that I read and the more that I learn about the historical record, the more I am convinced that the land I refer to as Palestine was stolen by the far right-wing genocidal state of Israel. The more recent historical record makes it clear that the U.S. government has supported the Israeli military with over $200 billion during its 75 years existence. That's like $3.4 billion a year. The military aid has been to the extraordinary detriment of the Palestinian people's struggle for freedom, justice, and an independent homeland. It's a travesty that the billions spent to arm Israel with military equipment, including nuclear weapons, should have instead gone to African-American communities here at home and others living in poverty-stricken inner cities across this country. Israel, as you all know, has been committing war crimes in our name because it's the U.S. government that's funding them. Israel has been carpet bombing Gaza, killing thousands and thousands of children, women. Now the death toll is well over 16,000, approximately half that are which are children. So you know you're complicit if you don't speak out, HRC, and if we don't demand a ceasefire. To add insult to injury, the Biden administration is proposing to send an additional $14 billion package to aid Israel to complete a genocide of the Palestinian people. The louder the international call for a ceasefire grows, the more the Israeli government digs in their heels. The longer the genocide continues, this is a big duh, the more potent anti-Semitism grows both here at home and around the world. A ceasefire must be in place now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. The city of Palo Alto is committed to a culture of belonging where all members of our diverse community feel included and safe and respected. We strongly denounce the speaker's message of discrimination and hate, and we've allowed this speech only because the First Amendment of the Constitution requires us to give everyone an equal chance to express their views. May we have the next speaker?
The next speaker is Naima. Naima, you have 2 minutes and you've been unmuted.
Thank you for hearing us as we speak about our experience here. I am a resident of the area, born and raised. I have aunt and cousins in Gaza right now. And in the beginning of the genocide, they became homeless. So their home was bombed by the Israeli military. They lived in northern Gaza, and they've had to now be relocated and run from the destruction more than 3 times. They're in Juan Yunis currently, and we feel that they're on borrowed time. When we message them, we literally just text, "Are you alive?" And it's a surreal experience to watch this unfold, to experience this happen to my family, and then to live in a city where I myself feel that I cannot even mourn because we're put on the defensive to explain why this is happening to our people. And so the pain and the suffering that's happening in Gaza, obviously it's so much larger than the experience that we are having here. But for my family and for myself, it's been extremely painful. And it's been extremely painful to see the uptick in Islamophobia in this area as well. When I speak about our pain with people here, it's surreal to know that this is actually happening to my family. So thank you for hearing us. Thank you for, taking this into consideration. We are demanding a ceasefire because this is safer for everyone.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Chair.
Thank you so much for your comments. If any of our other public comments are going to comment about the lived experience, please hold it till item 2. But thank you for sharing. Next.
Our next speaker is Alina. Alina, you've been unmuted and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm a resident of Palo Alto for the past 8 years. So I'm going to speak about my lived experience. I don't know if this is the proper format. Do I wait till another time or do I just go
Yes,
right now?
it is a second agenda item, so we'd encourage you to hold for that time, and we will put you as the first public comment at that time.
Okay, I'll speak then.
Thank you, Alina.
And Chair, just may I say that we have one more speaker, Liz, and then this is being closed out since we closed it out after the second speaker. So Liz, you can go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
And let's please place Alina as first on item 2.
Javad will take care of that, Chair.
Liz?
Hi there. Should I wait for later on or should I start discussing now? It was in regards to hate crimes and stuff. I'm a little confused.
That would be item 2. We will put Liz as the second person on
Okay.
item 2. Thank you so much. All right. We are now on item 2. The goal of the Human Relations Commission of Palo Alto is to deeply and compassionately care about our residents in the city. As we've seen things on the world stage, I have received phone calls from many different communities. I had the opportunity to sit and have coffee with 3 nice ladies from the Muslim Arab community, and hearing their pain, their discomfort, and their challenges in our community, it is abundantly clear to me as chair of the HRC and this commission that we need to hear every voice in our community. I'll tell you the limit of what we can do. So as everybody comments, they'll be clear on what we can do. We are not the city council, so we cannot write a statement for the city or make a statement. But what we can do is give people a space to share their lived experience, create opportunities for them to be seen, and create opportunities for the community to embrace them closely. I want to make sure, not just as chair of HRC, but as a Christian pastor, that I live out my faith where we see all men as creation of God and care for them profoundly, deeply, as we care for our neighbors. So, thank you, Samina. So as we do that, we are going to do this in this format. We're going to have 3 representatives from the Muslim, Arab, Palestinian community of Palo Alto. They're going to share their lived experience. They have a presentation. They're going to talk about it. And after that, we are going to open up for public comment. The way we do public comment is we will do one person here for 2 minutes, one person online for 2 minutes. People can share whatever's on their heart for those 2 minutes. We ask that you really focus on the lived experience because we can do things in our city, and I want to do things. So give me the tools to do things for our city. So we'll go back and forth. After that, I will invite the commissioners at their own willingness to ask questions of the panelists and figure where we go from there. So I'm committed to hear every voice that wants to speak tonight, and we'll take as long as we need.
Chair, may I interject? So we are going to be putting the presentation there, and also my colleague Kristen has made copies of it, and she's coming down so we can also hand those out, and we might ask you to share with a neighbor.
Generally you can't, but since you're my friend, I'll let you ask me a question. What's this, Samina? What I said is I can't write it. Give me stuff that I can take to them. Yes. We can talk and we can recommend. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
Chair Smith, do we need to approve the minutes?
Commissioner Savage has to leave early, so I want her to be here for the item and not leave in the middle of the item. So that's why I have moved the agenda around.
Are you first? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Can you just state your name for the record?
Sure.
Please?
My name is Ahmed, and I'm a resident here in Palo Alto. And I really appreciate you giving us ample amount of time to talk about our experiences. I want to start by just echoing or reiterating the mission of HRC, which I love, which is to promote the just and fair treatment of all citizens in the neighborhood. And I think it's a noble mission. And I want to thank you all for, perfect. I want to thank you all for your service to support this noble mission. I'm going to spend this time talking about my lived experience in Palo Alto and whether it has in fact been just and fair. So I'll share my personal experiences. I'll harken back to the Trump Muslim ban and how I felt at that time was very despondent. But you know what picked me out of the dumps was my fellow Palo Alto residents who took to the streets in support of my rights. And I felt at that moment seen and understood in a way that I hadn't previously. We decided at the beginning of COVID to move to Orange County. We wanted to try something different. And right around then, George Floyd was murdered and the Black Lives Movement started. And I looked for protests in Orange County. I looked for signs on the lawns and I was shocked. And we came back to visit our friends in Palo Alto, and my wife and I smiled because everywhere we looked, there were BLM signs. And we thought to ourselves, these are our people. This is where we belong. What are we doing in Orange County? We moved back. Now, has it all been rosy? No. I was at Kepler's and someone told me to go back to my country. And I said, that's Menlo Park. That's not Palo Alto, right? And no offense to my friends from Menlo Park, but I said, that's not Palo Alto. And I was walking down University Avenue when someone rolled down their window and said, go back to your country. And I thought, bad apple, must be a visitor, not a resident, right? Then October 7th happened. And I'll say that as a man of faith, as a Muslim, my faith requires me to stand up for the marginalized in the community. So I, along with members of my community, were quick to condemn the horrific terrorist attacks that happened in Israel, the loss of innocent lives, women, children, men, horrific, right? That was our duty, not only as Muslims, but as residents of Palo Alto, right? We had heard that the Palo Alto School District was considering a resolution on anti-Semitism, which pained me to think that my Jewish neighbors were actually experiencing anti-Semitism. Now, at the same time, we started experiencing Islamophobia. Our kids in the school were already experiencing Islamophobia, and Sumaya, who will speak next, will walk you through some of those incidences. So this resolution that was proposed was certainly just, but it was not fair because it didn't address the needs of all in the community. Now, credit to POSD, they put it on hold and they allowed us an opportunity to propose what we call the Unity Resolution, which was to condemn anti-Semitism as well as condemn Islamophobia along with anti-MENA, which is Middle Eastern North Africa hate, right? And so we were fortunate to be able to be part of that process. Now, we spoke in favor of this Unity Resolution, and I have to say it was a disheartening experience. Every single one of us got up and spoke to the pain of our neighbors, which was the anti-Semitism that was felt and the horrific attacks, in conjunction with talking about the pain that we were feeling as it related to Islamophobia and anti-MENA hate. We felt bullied. We felt threatened. One of our members was actually booed in their speech. We had people in the back with their iPhones recording us. This was right at the same time that people were getting doxxed. There were members of our community who were genuinely fearful that they were going to get fired from their jobs for speaking about what is just and right. How is that possible? And we felt silenced, honestly. And in fact, there are many who are scared to even speak today. But by the way, it's not just what we say. It extends to what we wear. People are afraid of wearing a keffiyeh because they're afraid of being called a Hamas supporter. Like, when has that been equated to being a Hamas supporter? There are people who are afraid to actually wear display the Palestinian flag, again, because it's viewed as supporting Hamas, which is far from what the people in this community do or feel. Thankfully, the POSD Unity Resolution passed, but that experience scarred me. And I looked around and I said, what is our city doing? Is the city living up to its promise of being just and fair to everyone? I point to the interfaith vigil that happened at Mitchell Park, right? The banner of that vigil said, a prayer vigil condemning the attacks, the Hamas attacks in Israel. And at the bottom of the flyer said, also condemning anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of hate. That was false advertising, I hate to say, because that rally was primarily what is happening over in Israel. And again, I am not diminishing any of the stuff that happened in Israel. It is horrific. But there was no consideration about what was happening here to residents, Muslim as well as folks in the MENA community, along with our Jewish neighbors. Like, this is what it means to be just and fair. We had the mayor actually issue a proclamation at that very thing, at that very vigil, talking about what was going on in Israel, right? And sad to say that we had HRC representatives in this. Now, I don't know whether you were all led to believe one thing and you got there and it turned into something else, but the perception from our community was that that was not fair, because we were not, the pains of us were not seen. So then there was the Bring Them Home rally, which is held right outside here, which again was not about what is happening here in Palo Alto, because by the way, there's a lot of anti-Semitism that is happening here in Palo Alto, which is abhorrent. It pains me, right? And I am proud to say that my pain is not greater than my neighbor's pain, right? But in that rally, which by the way, the mayor was in attendance, there was no discussion about what is actually happening here in Palo Alto, and no discussion about the plight of the MENA and Muslim community. How is that just, and how is that fair? There was an interfaith rally, one that was truly interfaith, where there was a discussion about the horrific killings of Israeli citizens and the loss of and horrific killings of Palestinians that are happening. And thankfully, Katie was in attendance on the HRC side. So I believe in the mission. I believe in your mission about providing a just and fair community for everyone who lives in Palo Alto. And I believe that you all want to be just and fair. I do believe that. And I believe that you have the best of intentions. But when we see these kinds of public acts of support for one marginalized group and not another, we cannot help but feel dehumanized. That's just natural. Now, I appreciate you scheduling this time and hearing us speak. That is a huge step in the right direction. But even in this conversation, we were told explicitly that we need to stay in the, quote unquote, stay in the box, which we will respect. By stay in the box, it means do not talk about what's happening over in the Middle East, talk specifically about what's happening in Palo Alto. But I will just point out the double standard associated with that, with having vigils, rallies, proclamations that are not talking about what is happening here, but it's talking about what is happening there. Is that just, and is that fair? We will respect it. We will talk about our experiences here in Palo Alto. But I can't help wondering whether we matter. Clearly we do. You've invited us here. I believe your intention is pure and you want to understand what are the experiences we have. I feel like today we will be heard. We will be, but to be seen requires action. And there's a big delta between hearing us speak and then taking action. So I do welcome what the understanding and exploration of what is possible. In closing, I just ask you all to live up to the mission, the noble mission that we are fully supportive of, which is to treat everyone just and fair. Thank you. And now I will turn it over to Sumaya to talk about some of our experiences, some of our children's experiences.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Sumaya. I have lived in Palo Alto since 2008. Love this city and being a part of it, and I appreciate you all having us here to listen. As the previous speaker talked about, we have been struggling, and we really appreciate you having us here to listen. In the past 2 months alone, our community has faced distressing acts of hate across the United States. And anything that, of course, happens in the United States affects us here as well. So, for example, Wadia Al-Fayoum, who is a 6-year-old Palestinian American boy, was stabbed 26 times in Chicago. His last words to his mother was, "Mom, I'm fine." And his only crime was to be Palestinian. That was it. And by the way, his mother was also injured and stabbed many, many times, but thankfully survived. Most recently, 3 Palestinian college students were shot as they were out for a walk in Vermont. Hisham, Kinan, and Tahsin were there celebrating Thanksgiving with their family and friends. 2 of them were wearing traditional Palestinian scarves known as keffiyehs. And, a person that lived in the neighborhood just decided that that was a crime to hear them speaking in Arabic to each other, and, wearing that. So they were all shot. And unfortunately, one of them, Hisham, is paralyzed as a result of a bullet being lodged in his spine. This is absolutely horrifying and tragic. And this shooting has had a terrifying and chilling effect on our community. We're terrified that our kids or any of us might be shot or killed for just simply existing. Next slide. How does this affect us here in Palo Alto? There's a real fear of speaking up due to repercussions. Some examples include a Palo Alto high school student posted on social media about Palestinian human suffering and was harassed and bullied by their peers. A Gun high school student was targeted on social media and in person by peers simply because they are Palestinian American. This included being shoved in the halls, and this is in our local high schools. And these are just 2 small examples. I mean, so many things have been happening to students, Palestinian, MENA students, Muslim students, and then also others. For example, Jewish students report that they are afraid of advocating for Palestinian human rights at school and in their own community. So they don't even feel safe doing that. A Latinx teenager reported crying every day for the children in Gaza, and her mother reported that she feels alone and isolated. She's afraid of talking to people at school. Kids in PAUSD have received emojis like bombs and mosques from their peers via texting. Another way is we are afraid to identify with our culture, traditions, and heritage. As you heard in the previous slide, 3 Palestinian American college students were shot. 2 of them were wearing keffiyehs. The keffiyeh is a traditional Palestinian and Middle Eastern scarf. Women are afraid to wear their hijabs in public. Even members of the Sikh community are fearful. Some of them wear turbans and are often incorrectly assumed to be Muslim or Arab. A Palo Alto high school student was afraid to wear a soccer jersey because it had Arabic writing on it. A teacher in PAUSD had a presentation that happened to have Arabic writing on it because they were studying the kite runner. And there was a concern by a student that they felt unsafe just because there was Arabic written on the slide. And the teacher then went ahead and took it off. And that is just, Arabic is just like any other language. So the fact that the teacher then went and did that, adds in, like when other students saw that happening, as the previous speaker mentioned, that doesn't, it feels you feel devalued. You feel like your who you are doesn't matter as much as other people or other people's opinions. At Pali, there's a MENA club, Middle East and North African club, and they suffered through false allegations, unjustly targeted with 0 evidence, purely because of a fear of what they could possibly think or say in the future. Our clothing, the languages we use, they all make us a target for hate. We feel unsafe in public spaces and even in schools, which should be a place of safety for our kids. We aren't able to bring our full selves, that includes the expression of our culture, religion, and traditions, with us in Palo Alto. A third way is our children deal with being called a terrorist on a regular basis. And by the way, this is way before the last 2 months. We've all suddenly realized that our kids have had this happen to them for years. I myself asked my own children about it, and they like, oh yeah, this has always happened. It's just a joke though. Being called a terrorist, talking about bombing, these things have existed in what we thought was a safe place in this city. Numerous Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim students have reported being called terrorists for standing up for Palestinian human rights. One South Asian student reported overhearing other students talking about Palestinians are terrorists. And as the previous speaker mentioned, we had the unity resolution, as we like to think of it, with the school district, and to quote a part of it, it says, whereas Muslim and MENA, and especially our Palestinian PAUSD students and families whose cultural self-expression and very identity are routinely conflated with hate, with terrorism, are feeling targeted and report experiencing hatred, silencing, intimidation, and exclusionary behaviors in our elementary, middle, and high schools. I'm not sure, does it work or no? Okay, so we had a small clip of that board meeting where we had about 8 students from the MENA region speak very powerfully about their experience. And we were hoping to show, but it's all on YouTube. So I really encourage you all to watch that video from that school board meeting on November 14th. And it would, just to listen to some of the experiences of our youth. And I mean, again, they spoke very powerfully, and I personally was very moved by it. The next slide. So I just wanted to, we have a local professor from Stanford who wrote this amazing article. So she is a clinical professor of psychiatry at Stanford School of Medicine, where she is the director of the Stanford Muslim Mental Health and Islamic Psychology Lab, Dr. Rania Awad. She wrote an article in Time Magazine just recently, I believe, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, where she talked about the devastating mental effects of Islamophobia in the United States. So according to the Time article, Muslim Americans have experienced a spike in hate incidents reminiscent of post 9/11 Islamophobia. These statistics underscore the urgency of addressing this issue and its broader impact on mental well-being. According to the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, every year since 2016, over 60% of American Muslims have reported experiencing at least one instance of religious discrimination, higher than all other religious groups in the US. Experiencing Islamophobia is associated with poor mental health in both Muslims and those perceived to be Muslim. Discrimination due to Muslim identity is associated with a greater number of depressive symptoms, fear and anxiety, lower self-esteem, and overall psychological distress. In a 2021 California-based study, 56% of Muslim school-aged respondents reported feeling unsafe at school, and 20% of them reported missing school due to these feelings. And this is all before this recent spike. And so I know in my own family, my children, especially my high schooler, was deeply affected by the last 2 months, and a lot of the negative situations that have happened at school or with peers over social media, and doesn't necessarily feel safe to talk about it to all her friends or peers or teachers even. And so it has I see it in my own family, and I think it's something that we need to make sure that our town is a place where all students, all kids, all adults, everyone can thrive and really just feel like they can be who they are and share, their heritage, their interests, and be able to speak out, be able, at the end of the day, this is the United States of America, and we pride ourselves in having our freedom of speech. And so I want my children to feel like if they have a feeling or an opinion about something, even if it's outside of our town, that they feel just as right as anyone else to be able to speak up. And I'm hopeful that you all can, help us in fostering that community as well. We have one more speaker. Thank you.
Next slide. Right. Hello. Thank you for having us. My name is Uzma. I've been in Palo Alto for over 12 years now. I have kids who went through the district here. I'm going to start with a personal story that goes pretty far back, but still in Palo Alto, to my early years in Palo Alto. It's a simple story about living as a minority, both a religious and ethnic minority in Palo Alto, but it's also a story of disillusionment. Palo Alto, a place I once believed to be a utopia, a haven where diversity thrived and acceptance knew no bounds. In those early days, the air in Palo Alto carried the sweet fragrance of unity, and I, a proud Muslim, felt a sense of safety, which is incredibly important for the well-being of residents. It was a place where my children, now older, attended elementary school at Walter Hayes. Walter Hayes always had an international festival every year. And every year I would be there, I would represent the Pakistan table. It would be a vibrant tapestry of cultures, often adorned in the classrooms as well. I vividly recall a cherished tradition during the week or two before the school winter break in Walter Hayes, where I would visit my kids' classrooms and discuss Ramadan, the Muslim holy month. I would use a copy of Night of the Moon by Henna Khan, which is a beautiful book that elegantly captures the essence of Ramadan. I didn't do this during actual Ramadan, the Muslim holy month of fasting, but instead I did it during the traditional American winter holidays, or rather right before everyone takes a break for the winter holidays. So that's when everyone was in a festive mood. And teachers would often teach students about religions and cultural celebrations all over the world, like Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and many others. As I read aloud, the children's curious eyes sparkled with fascination. They asked questions, eager to understand the significance of Ramadan and its connection to the lunar calendar. In those moments, the classroom transformed into a bridge of understanding, connecting hearts and minds. Even my son's third grade teacher wove in the Ramadan narrative into the astronomy unit about the different phases of the moon. In those times, I felt heard and seen. The genuine interest, the warmth, the shared joy of learning from people with all different cultural backgrounds from all over. It created an atmosphere that transcended differences. My identity as a Muslim was not just accepted, but celebrated. Yet recently, change has swept through Palo Alto, unraveling the utopian fabric I once believed in. The truth is, sadly, that Palo Alto was never as accepting as I had once thought. I'm hearing stories from my own children and those of numerous friends, like you already heard, about being called terrorists or being part of demeaning bomb jokes. I found myself grappling with the reality that shattered the illusion of a harmonious existence. It's disheartening to know that we're no longer shielded by the embrace of understanding and acceptance. The very essence of being heard and seen has begun to slip away. Today, as I share this deeply personal and vulnerable story with you, I implore each of you to reflect on the power we hold to shape the narrative of our communities. So we can rekindle that flame of empathy to rebuild the bridges that connect us and to stand against the shadows that threaten to divide us. In the end, my story is not just mine. It is a mirror reflecting the collective narrative of a community once united by diversity. It's a plea for a return to the days when understanding triumphed over fear and acceptance was not a fleeting concept, but a constant presence in the tapestry of Palo Alto. So we stand at a crossroads. What can the HRC do to help? It's crucial that we channel our collective energy into actionable steps that can rejuvenate the spirit of unity and understanding in Palo Alto. To this end, we present a series of concrete proposals aimed at fostering inclusivity, humanizing our experiences, and building stronger relationships with the community. First, we respectfully request a meeting with the police department. This is an opportunity to engage in open dialogue, addressing community concerns, and collaboratively working on safety measures that consider the unique challenges faced by different members of our community. By forging a connection between law enforcement and the community, we can establish trust and create a safer environment for all. Second, we propose the official recognition of Eid holidays, which happen twice a year. This acknowledgement not only demonstrates the city's commitment to embracing diversity, but also allows members of the Muslim community to celebrate their religious and cultural festivities without feeling marginalized. Moreover, we advocate for education initiatives focused on Ramadan and fasting to promote a deeper understanding of our traditions. In addition to these initiatives, we suggest the organization of community events that celebrate the rich tapestry of our culture. These events can include Eid festivals, celebrating and showcasing the vibrancy of Eid traditions that bring the entire community together, an official Palo Alto City community iftar. An iftar is an event during Ramadan where community members, regardless of their faith, can come together to break our fast together and eat together, fostering a sense of unity. Islamic and MENA, Middle Eastern North African festivals, highlighting the diverse cultures within Islam and Islamic and Middle Eastern North African communities. Cultural and literary festivals that can serve as a platform to explore prominent Muslim figures, both historical and present, as well as a wealth of literature within our community, providing a space for storytelling and sharing diverse narratives. Art festivals, celebrating Muslim, Arab, and Palestinian heritage. Teach-ins on Islamic history and culture for teachers in our community. An educational program aimed at equipping educators in our schools with a deeper understanding of Islamic history and culture, and that will ensure a more inclusive curriculum for students. We call on the HRC to support these events and also foster liaisons with our local library and art center, as well as local bookstores. All right, next one. So moving forward on our journey toward a more inclusive and compassionate community, we recognize the importance of formal declarations that denounce hate and discrimination. To this end, we propose seeking the support of the City Council in crafting stronger resolutions and proclamations against Islamophobia, anti-Arab hate, and anti-Palestinian hate. In regards to the issue of anti-Palestinian hate, I want to bring your attention to Mayor Lydia Ku's Palestinian Cultural Day Proclamation, which was from May 15th, 2023, this year. The language in the proclamation acknowledges Palestinian existence and contributions, and it's a great starting point for the HRC and the City Council. We believe that a robust resolution condemning Islamophobia and anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian hate would send a powerful message of solidarity, reaffirming the City Council's commitment to the safety and well-being of all its residents. By taking a stand against these forms of discrimination, Palo Alto can serve as a beacon of tolerance and understanding. We also propose adopting a comprehensive definition of anti-Palestinian hate, similar to the one provided by the Arab Canadian Lawyers Association, and Islamophobia definitions such as the one cited by the United Nations Human Rights Office. This would provide a framework for understanding and combating these forms of discrimination, which can be related, but are distinct as well. The next slide. So I'm the last speaker. So in conclusion, I want to thank you all. We appreciate your time and attention today. You've given our community that often feels invisible and marginalized a voice, and we are very, very grateful for that. We know that you fast-track this meeting and that it usually takes months to get a meeting like this on your calendar. So thank you so much. It has made us feel seen and heard. And our goal is to collaboratively work with the Palo Alto HRC. And we're happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having the courage to come forward and share stories. I know what it's like to be a minority in a space and actually sharing your heart. So I'm deeply appreciative. Before we continue any further, I just want to apologize to your community. In my role as pastor, I received a call from our Jewish community and I supported them at the rally. And I don't take back that support. But if it made you feel, was never my intention. The same way as when I did receive a call from your community, I made space here. So I am sorry if the rally made you uncomfortable, but we wanted to be fair to you. So as soon as I received your call, we responded. So I just wanted to clarify that point. I want to answer one of your requests. I was just texting with Chief Andrew Bender, and he has committed to meet with your community. We're going to have Minka from staff work to get that on the calendar. I'll be there. And so we at least have one of your requests done. To answer the other parts, before we get in public comment, the HRC this year presented a framework to the city around holidays. We were very specific. The vice chair actually went in October to present it to them. And I'm happy to bring this as an action item to our commission to apply that framework towards the recognition of the holidays that you've requested. So that's a start. I know my other commissioners will share, but we would like to go to public comment. You have 2 minutes. This is a safe space. We're going to let you talk with no interruptions. So feel free to share what you like. After public comment, I will open up the floor for other commissioners to speak. We will start with an in-person one. I think it's good. No, actually, I'd made a promise. I apologize. Maybe we start with Alina and then Liz, and then we can go to Samina.
Alina, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yeah, my name is Alina. I have been a Palo Alto resident for the past 8 years. The experience, I haven't actually talked about it publicly or even with my husband. So it's, I feel very vulnerable and quite frankly, like my heart's beating really fast as I talk about it. But it was an experience that made me feel really like psychologically and emotionally unsafe. It was just like, I hope I can do this in 2 minutes, but everything that people described about feeling unseen, sidelined, you come into Palo Alto with big bright eyes thinking that, you know, it's a utopia. And then I drink that Kool-Aid, but I've been disappointed. So my daughter attends the preschool family. Maybe you've heard of it. And she's in preschool. And when October 7th happened, just like one of the speakers mentioned, it was horrifying. And I knew that the parents in my classroom have family in Israel, like some of them do. So I in our WhatsApp group, nobody was saying anything, and then I just thought, like, let me speak to this community the way I would like to be spoken to when I feel attacked. And I sent out this message, and I said, you know, as a Muslim, and I have extended family in Gaza, but I really want to just, I didn't even say but I just say, as a Muslim, I want to extend, you know, my condolences, and I know how horrifying this is, and I'm really sorry about what happened in Israel. It must be so difficult. And just like I got this resounding, like 10 people, I have 30 seconds, 10 people just like loved it and thanked me. And they were so appreciative. And then, a lot of them said, well, what is there anything we can do for your family back home? And I said, yeah, they're actually running from bombs. I don't know if they're going to make it out alive. Just, a call to our representatives for a ceasefire would save their lives. And the response was, let's keep politics out of this. We want to, have an inclusive and positive atmosphere for our kids. And I was so disappointed. It was really, really heartbreaking. And
Thank
I'm
you,
angry.
Alina. Thank you, Alina. We appreciate it. The next speaker is Liz. So Liz, let me find you. Hold on. Liz, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, first of all, the HRC for taking your time and listening. I wanted to share some documented incidents of hate crimes. So on November 3rd, there was an Arab Muslim student in Stanford, in my very own hometown, Palo Alto, that was injured in a hit and run and a hate crime. Driver made eye contact, accelerated, and yelled profanity. Kids have been targeted in my hometown, in Palo Alto, and bullied both in person and on social media, in PAUSD, including Gun and Pally. These incidents are making me, a Palo Alto resident, feel unsafe, unsupported, and dehumanized. Kids are too afraid to show their heritage or identity because of discrimination and racism. How is this next generation being supported? This is not the Palo Alto I recall or can imagine being in. These hate crimes have spread like cancer. You've already heard October 15, a 6-year-old Palestinian boy stabbed to death just for being Palestinian by his landlord. October 25th, a 33-year-old man pepper sprayed pro-Palestinian supporters in Chicago, charged with a hate crime, 2 felony counts, aggravated battery, and 2 felony hate crime charges for the incident. October 28th, Muslim doctor stabbed to death at a picnic table. The list goes on. A man threatened to shoot 2 Muslim men in Illinois. A gunman shot through a Palestinian family home in Colorado. A city council member was arrested for carrying a gun at a pro-Palestinian rally in New York, and the police arrested a man who wanted others to join him in hunting down Palestinians in Michigan. 3 Palestinian college students shot in Vermont. There's several instances. These are spread across, not only through my own Palo Alto. During CARE, during the first month alone, after CARE's national headquarters, they counted 1,283 requests for help and reports of bias, almost above a 200% increase. That was only during the first month. More data is coming out. Please stand up. Please be vocal against this hate, discrimination, and injustices for humanity's sake. Please consider the initiatives and recommendations provided by the speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. So next will be Samina. Samina, you may sit down. You have 2 minutes, and you can see the clock on the computer next to you.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon all of you. I have lived in Palo Alto for 41 years. I don't know if anybody who is here has lived here for that long. And sadly, I just
Got one.
I just want to tell the speakers who presented, I have seen this hate for 41 years. When my kids were in elementary school, even the teachers just were not kind to them. The kids were not kind to them, especially when there were, issues with Middle East and then, bombing and this and that. It's just like in high school, people used to call my daughter Saddam Hussein's daughter and this and that. It was just horrible. My son came home once and he said, Mom, is there something wrong with me? I said, why? Because, Mom, when I raise my hand to answer a question, my teacher never picks me. And he was in AP class. He was a brilliant student, wonderful, respectful child. But that's what we suffered. As Coloma probably knows, Minka knows that I have an organization and we have been serving the community
For years.
for just 25 years. I have volunteered in kids' classroom, math labs, science labs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I have cleaned highways in Palo Alto, not in Palo Alto, but in America. I have served the Stanford emergency room, volunteered. There isn't a place I haven't volunteered. When would I feel at home? I still don't feel at home because there is no welcoming wagon for Muslims or dark people or brown people and all that. So all this mission that we can write and we can talk about doesn't do anything unless we all start teaching our kids today. This generation is gone, but at least for our future generations, we could teach them love rather than hate. That's all I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Samina. The next speaker is Aziz. Aziz, could you, yeah, you can sit there as well, just as long as you have just press it in.
Oh, this is for president? Sorry, okay. My name is Aziz. I've been in Palo Alto since 1995. So 29 years, very good. It's a great city to live, I mean, a lot of experiences. Anyway, esteemed members of the Human Relations Commissions and the Palo Alto, I wrote it, I just wanted to read this. I want to address you today a pressing concern that requires our immediate attention, which is called Islamophobia. In 1990s and 1995s, there is no word called Islamophobia. So I just want to bring that into your attention. So in our pursuit of an inclusive community, it is crucial to confront and dismantle any form of discrimination, fear, or prejudice faced by our Muslim neighbors. Islamophobia, not only affects individuals, but also erodes the very fabric of our diverse society. Every instance of hate, bigotry, or discrimination goes against the values we uphold as a community. I've been in this community for a long time. I experienced so many good things. I want to continue that. We must stand together, united in our resolve to foster an environment where our Muslim community members feel safe, respected, and embraced. By fostering understanding and empathy, we can combat misconceptions and build bridges of solidarity. Okay, so let us reaffirm as commitment to combating Islamophobia and ensure that Palo Alto remains a place where all are welcome and valued for their contribution. Thank you for your dedication to a more inclusive and harmonious community.
Thank you. I don't know if we said, but we will take names for public speakers. We were going to do it after the second speaker. I don't think we said that, but we will take any new names that want to speak, either raise your hand or turn something in by the end of this speaker, and then we will close it out and we will spend the time listening. So if you are next, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Farhan David. I'm the president of Mountain View Palo Alto Musalla, the local Islamic Center for Muslims. To begin with, thank you for providing this opportunity for Palo Alto Muslims and Arab residents to voice their concern. As you're well aware, Islamophobia and Arab hate is spreading at an alarming rate and all through our nation. And I would also say that it is becoming systemic. Contrary to the popular portrayal of our community is against violence, aggression, and killing of all innocent people, sadly. And I just have to contextualize why Islamophobia is increasing. So sadly, our public officials at national and local levels, many our president, refuse to listen to our pleas to use their influence to secure a ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza war. This has led to the death of more than 16,000 innocent Palestinians, majority of whom are women and children, Our leaders' silence at this issue is also sending a message across our nation that some lives, particularly those of Muslims and Arabs, are dispensable. It is no surprise then that all across our nation, we witness the stabbing, shooting, and killing of peaceful Muslims and Arabs in their own neighborhoods and even in their own homes. The rising tide of Islamophobia and Arab hate leaves our community members feeling very vulnerable and insecure in their own home and neighborhoods. Early this month, a Stanford student, was intentionally run over by a truck on the campus. Personally, I loved walking in my beautiful city, but in the present scenario, I don't feel safe to even take a stroll alone in my neighborhood. Even if I'm walking with other family members, I don't cross the street without worrying about whether the car standing at the stop sign could have intentions to hurt us. We want to feel safe and protected in our neighborhood and in our country. You have taken a positive step to humanize us and to give importance to our concerns. I thank you all for that and hope other city council members will follow in your footsteps to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
So we will not be taking any new names now. I might give Javad a chance to, are you caught up? Great. So the next speaker is Farha. I'm sorry, I did not keep up. Huda, welcome.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Farha's daughter. I went to Palo Alto High, so I can attest firsthand some of the stuff that people are saying. But I'll start by saying that, so we moved to Palo Alto from the South, from Iowa. Some of our experiences there were, I remember my mom and my little brother, sister, and I got chased by a car one time, screaming like epithets at us. We've been obviously called terrorists, all of that. We've had like a number of very serious experiences, but Palo Alto is pretty diverse. So we figured moving here would be a lot better. Within the first few years, literally within the first 2 years, my little brother who went to Walter Hayes had a backpack thrown at him and some kids screamed Allahu Akbar and called him a terrorist. My sister was called a terrorist in school, and a friend of mine at Pali, their mother thought I was going to take the friend to join ISIS. And so this is kind of like the lived experience of what is happening in Palo Alto. My mom didn't mention this, but she also got chased on her way to Walter Hayes by a car after the San Bernardino shootings because somebody was screaming at her like, oh, like you're responsible for this, because she wears the hijab even though we don't, so she's more visibly Muslim. And as people have said, like when you experience this stuff, you're kind of like, you take it as a joke because to be honest, it's like, what are you going to do? Like if you speak about it, your presence is already seen as being a pest because of the way you are. I know a lot of minorities can understand this feeling of like, you know, that like maybe the world would be better without you, as people make you feel because like that's how people treat you. And so you're like, maybe I just won't talk about my lived experiences or any of that. I'll just take it as a joke. But then I sort of wonder for the future generation, especially as a teacher now, like, is that the world that they deserve to be living in? Like, is this really the world that we as minorities have to be living in, that like we feel like we can't speak up for ourselves because it just makes it more difficult for other people to deal with their everyday normal lives? So I mostly just ask that you please take that into consideration. Like this does not need to be how the world is for people. And it would be really nice if it's just a different world for all of us. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Musa. Welcome.
Anywhere's fine.
Anywhere with a microphone that's on.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Musa, and I'm speaking on behalf of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Since October, CARE National has received an unprecedented 1,283 reports of anti-Arab and Islamophobic bias, reflecting a 216% increase in requests for help and reported bias incidents compared to the previous year. This data is from last month, and the reports are only growing. CARE California has received an increase in reports of hate-based violence and discrimination across the state, including cases where classmates or teachers verbally abuse students for being Muslim, Arab, Palestinian, or supporters of Palestine. Schools in the Bay Area are currently seeing a significant uptick in Islamophobic language and incidents. A recent study from CARE California found that Muslim students are being bullied at twice the rate of the national average. And there have also been concerning reports that FBI agents are questioning Palestinian community members and possibly others regarding recent events in Palestine and Israel. I want to provide some context on the current events that are driving this uptick in Islamophobia, particularly the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza. 20,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel in Gaza, nearly half of them being children. The average age of those killed is 5 years old, and the vast majority of the casualties have been innocent civilians, and thousands more are presumed dead under the rubble. And Israel is using dehumanizing language to justify this genocide and this violence, using phrases such as human animals, children of the darkness, and that language has repercussions here at home. By now, we've all heard about the 6-year-old Palestinian boy in Chicago who was fatally stabbed 26 times, and recently the 3 young Palestinian men in Vermont who were shot, one of them being left paralyzed. Here in the Bay, we saw an Arab Muslim student suffer a hit and run in Stanford. We saw a 14-year-old girl in Monterey be choked by a man because she wrote "Free Palestine" in the sand. All of these incidents are horrifying, and it won't end there. The language we use, especially our elected officials, matters. Words have consequences. And I hope all this underscores the gravity and urgency of these recent waves of racist Islamophobia and how it impacts Muslims in the Bay Area. And we urge the city of Palo Alto to be consistently against all forms of discrimination, including anti-Semitism and Islamophobia.
Thank you. The next speaker is Faria. Okay, so then the next speaker is, the next speaker is
Wait
Michelle.
a second. Sure you don't want to speak? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. My name's Michelle Higgins. I'm here tonight as a neighbour, a friend, and an ally and advocate for human rights and equality. I am aware the focus tonight is our MENA and Muslim community here in Palo Alto. And while I appreciate that focus, I do not think it is possible to have an honest conversation about what is happening here without making reference to the events happening over there. These events are directly impacting this community in the most painful of ways. And that pain is further compounded when our city leadership has failed to publicly acknowledge this reality in anything but the most cursory of ways, a footnote to the main story. When a child who looks very much like your own is dying every 10 minutes, when the images of unimaginable horror and death are hard to avoid, and you are met with silence from friends, co-workers, elected officials, when you are required first to prove that you are not terrorist aligned in order to be treated with a shred of humanity and compassion, it becomes difficult to believe that you are truly an equal member of the community. As Hala Allen, a Palestinian writer, psychologist, and professor in New York City says so eloquently in her opinion piece, The Palestinian Double Standard, and I quote, "In 2017, I published a novel about a Palestinian family. There was a refrain that kept coming up. People kept commenting on how human the story was. You've humanized the conflict. This is a human story. But every time I was told I'd humanize the Palestinians, I would have to suppress the question it evoked. What had they been before? A couple of weeks ago, in a professional space, someone called Palestinians by name and spoke of the 7 decades of their anguish. I sat among the dozens of workers. My lip was quivering. I am undone not by silence or erasure, but by empathy. Thank you. And I humbly request that we actually do call for a ceasefire now. Thank you.
The next speaker is Syed.
Hi there. My name is Syed. First of all, I would like to thank each one of you for giving us the opportunity to hear us and listen to us. Again, venting out is the first step towards healing, and I really appreciate that. Our family has been living at Stanford since 2017, right across the road from Palo Alto. Since October 7th, we have been afraid after the intentional hit and run of the Arab student at Stanford. Our family has felt unsafe and threatened. My daughter, a 6-year-old, wanted to imitate her mom, and she wore the hijab while going out. And I had to, which I regret, pull it off her head and say, no, when you're out, you don't do that. That's not fair to her. And I don't know what kind of trauma I probably left her with, which again is unfair to her. And I regret that myself. We've heard about the lady who was spit on because she was wearing hijab while walking her kids to the school right here in Palo Alto, Stanford area. These are not isolated incidents. This is due to the dehumanization and lies being constantly repeated by elected officials about what happened in the Middle East to manufacture consent for carrying out genocide, resulting in Palestinian children being killed over there as well as here. I want to thank you for calling for a ceasefire, because that's definitely going to help in reducing this dehumanization that is being perpetuated. I would like the esteemed commission to consider the recommendation of the residents here and enable our people here, bring back the dignity to them. And this is a start. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lama.
Thank you so much. I hope that I can take Fariha's 2 minutes as well.
You got
That's
it.
okay. Thank you. So I am a Palestinian American, and I've been part of the Palo Alto community for about 10 years. I have worked with the PAUSD and PTAC to help with vaping measures. I've talked to city council members about that and have advocated for a lot of different things in my life. I wanted to tell you just a little bit about my story. I grew up here in the US, and my parents came here after my grandparents were forced out of their homes in 1947. Their town was attacked by a terrorist group called the Haganah, which was declared a terrorist group by the British in 1946, and they fled, and a lot of Palestinians fled. When I was about 5 years old, my mom sat me down first day of school and said to me, "Do not tell anyone you are Palestinian." She said that I could get hurt, that it wasn't safe, and that maybe somebody would think I was a terrorist. And she asked me if I understood. I nodded my head, but I didn't understand. My people have been accused of making it up. We've been accused of not having these things happen to us. We've been accused of leaving of our own volition. We've been accused of the human rights violations that have been committed against us. We've been blamed for. When I had kids, I promised myself I would never ask them to hide who they are. But a few days after October 7th, my son came out with a shirt, a sweatshirt that said Gaza 5K on it. He had fundraised for mental health for children in Gaza, and he had been the top fundraiser. He fundraised $7,000, and he got a beautiful sweatshirt for it, and he got a trophy. And he wanted to go to school wearing that, and I panicked, and I said, "You need to take that sweatshirt off." And I did not let him go to school wearing that. And I'm here today because I think that I don't want to have to tell my son to hide who he is. I don't want to have to tell my son, you can't show your compassion for children who have mental health issues. You can't show others what you've done because you're Palestinian. The day he walked out wearing that sweatshirt was just a few days after October 7th. By then, the Israeli defense minister had already said my people were human animals. They had already shut off the food and water to 2 million of my people. Hundreds of Palestinian children had already been killed. And instead of letting him go and celebrate what he did for mental health of children, I said, take that sweater off. You cannot do that. This is not about my kid, honestly. This is about the rights of human beings here in Palo Alto, in our community, and all over the world. So if I would ask you respectfully to do one thing, it would be to help educate our community, educate them about human rights and what human rights violations are, so they don't rely on the media to tell them what's right and wrong, and they don't rely on the people around them. They look at and evaluate themselves, what's happening, and figure out what's right and wrong. And I would also ask you to educate on anti-Palestinian racism specifically, because this is racism against Palestinians and Palestinian allies, people who want to stand up and advocate for Palestinian human rights are being silenced. It's anti-Palestinian racism. You have in your handout a fact sheet about it that explains it and explains how it's different from Islamophobia and anti-Arab racism.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ahmed.
Hi,
Hi, Ahmed.
my name is Ahmed Mustafa, and I'm a Palo Alto resident. When I was in 7th grade, a student told me, while describing something about the inherent nature of Muslims and Arabs, not you, you're one of the good ones. And I didn't know how to respond at the time as a 7th grader, because it was kind of like a half-baked compliment. And so I put up my fist and I kind of tapped his fist as a fist bump. But I heard another variation of that statement to myself recently. And that statement inherently means that the origins, you yourself, are not as equal. There's an inherent something not like you're a good apple from a rotten orchard. And there's something wrong about that. And we have to stand up even when we hear those microaggressions, because what it means is that somehow we are, as Muslims, Arabs, and even those associated with the Palestinian cause in some kind of way, inherently less than. And we're reminded about that over and over again. When we see children like 6-year-old Wadi al-Fayoum, a human being, a 6-year-old child stabbed, not once, not twice, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I get exhausted counting to 10. He was stabbed 26 times. And we hear it again when 3 men, young men, less than my age, who were wearing merely a keffiyeh, were shot, one of them paralyzed now. And then in our own city, here in Palo Alto, a student merely crossing the street where a car accelerated, hit him, and the individual said, F you and your people. And so I urgently ask you to accept the proposals. And every time that you hear something like that, even a small microaggression, that you stand up and say something. And if you hear about it on your laptop, that you feel bad about it, that it hurts in some kind of way, because at the end of the day, what that means is we're human too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. The next speaker is Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I wanted to talk about my first experience where I knew I was different. I was at a library with my older sister, and a group of boys came and they banged on the window and and they all started laughing. And I was probably around 7 years old. And I remember I was like, wow, that's when I know I'm really different. And then as I started getting older and I went to university, I was walking with a group of girls who was wearing hijab. And Same thing. A car came by, had just a bag full of trash and threw it at us. Sorry, not a great public speaker, so excuse me. So that's when I knew I was different. And recently, my son had asked me, "Do you think we'll be kicked out of the country?" This is my son, born at Stanford, who's only 9 years old. And I say, like, that's crazy. That would never happen. But I want him to not grow up the way that I grew up, where I knew I was different. So I just wanted to commend the city's commitment to fostering inclusive and equity and a sense of belonging, as outlined in the City Council's adoption of the Race and Equity Mission statement on November 16th. With the City Council's renewed priority on community health and safety, it is paramount that we continue to focus on building a community that stands as a bastion of tolerance and acceptance, especially for the future generations. So when my son and daughter, grow up, they don't have the same experiences that I have. And I was inspired by the artwork that was displayed in front of King's Plaza by the Artisans in Residence program in Palo Alto. And when that's translated from Spanish, it says, "I see you, I hear you, and I honor you." And I was thinking, how cool would that be with the next Artist in Residence artwork to be displayed to be an Arab American or a Muslim or someone in the community where their voices have been silenced. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. The next speaker is online and it's Mary. Mary, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. I want to say thank you to Chair Pastor Smith and the Commissioner. I commend you for holding this listening session, but I mostly want to thank for those who are bravely sharing their lived experience and providing some very realistic and achievable recommendations. My name is Mary Gloner. Pronouns are she, her. I am the CEO, Executive Director of Project Safety Net. I'm also a community health professional. While I came to listen and learn, as well as I was moved, especially by the presentation. I wanted to point out that racism is a social determinant of health, racism and bigotry. And while sadly these hate incidents and crimes are not unique to Palo Alto, what is unique to Palo Alto, its legacy of youth suicides. It is important for this commission to really instill some protective factors and foster zero tolerance for hate. As a former commissioner and have been blessed and honored to work beside and serve beside Samina Sundas for almost 15 years when we were on the commission, you as a for the county of Santa Clara, you as a city commission have authority and process in your place that you can inform, educate, and advise city council, not only behind the scenes and fostering meetings with chief vendor, but making it a public agenda. And so I think if this is an opportunity to uplift the strengths of this community, and so that you can unify and really be forward and with your mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. The next speaker is Aram. You have 2 minutes for this agenda item. Oh, sorry, Aram. Hold on. Go ahead, please.
Appreciate Pastor Smith for putting this on the calendar and making this a special hearing and giving people plenty of time to talk. I am a criminal defense attorney, retired public defender, still a member of the bar. I've spent the great bulk of my 74 years living right here in Palo Alto. Mom raised me up. She was a lifetime member of the NAACP. I just want to put my phone number out there that anybody wants to talk to me, but if the FBI approaches, the police approach you, you don't have to talk with them. I'm at 415-370-5056. I'm also the father of 2 African-American sons, an African-American stepson, and 3 racially mixed grandchildren from 22 to 16. I can tell you that the police in this city have historically rolled up on my kids. They have violated the constitutional rights of Black people historically. And of course, there's an extraordinary link, in my estimation, between the civil rights movement in this country for African Americans and the Palestinians. And we must continue, at least I know I have to continue to speak out. I did want to bring to your attention that the film Israelism is going to be, you can see it from during Hanukkah, December 8th through 10th. It's an extraordinary film of two Jewish filmmakers that grew up in this country and were basically, they'll tell you, brainwashed by the Zionist education that they had. One of them went into the military and beat up, pushed around Palestinians, and now has an extraordinary sadness for that. I recommend that to you. And I also want to let you know that I asked the city council on Monday for a ceasefire. Nobody responded. I will do it again this coming Monday on the 11th at city council and again on the 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Aram. The next speaker is Sarah.
Sarah. Good to see you again.
So hi, as an immigrant from Jamaica, I slowly and painfully overcame my insecurities around identity in an America with racism I didn't grow up with. So finding and using my voice as a parent and as an advocate for families who had little representation and even less of a voice in our schools has been, for me, an extremely empowering thing, and has allowed me to sort of really bind and commit to this community. That said, I've been taken aback and pretty embarrassed even to realize how ignorant I've been to the internalized weight and trauma embedded in our Muslim community. My fellow parents, my neighbors, are trapped that they have no voice, no vocabulary that is acceptable in advocating for Palestine and its people. Representation matters. And without the freedom to use language to convey an authentic perspective, one doesn't really exist as a whole person or as a people with identity. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. So for me here in Palo Alto, as I try to acknowledge, empathize, and advocate for equal humanitarian treatment in the region, I'm struck by my inability to actually find language that will not provoke. I can't seem to balance multiple people in the single and simple concept of valuing the lives of all people equally. I cannot exercise speech freely without risk of being considered divisive or anti-Semitic. When people are marginalized, even if you don't have power, you have your voice, except if you don't. This is the ultimate form of power, to be able to effectively silence Muslim and Palestinian voices and render this vital part of our community invisible. I call on the Human Relations Commissions, yourselves, to lead and support the measures and activities being asked for, and also to use your voice and language to balance multiple people in the single and simple concept of valuing the lives of all Palo Altans equally. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. The next speaker is online and it's Shannon. Shannon, you go ahead. You have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you so much for providing this forum. I'm a Palo Alto resident and a lawyer who spent most of my career, really all of my career, involved in various civil and human rights initiatives, and that includes time working with a human rights organization in the West Bank. And I want to note that I just don't think it's possible to separate who we are as people from how we are impacted by the broader world. And while our physical hearts are located here in Palo Alto, we all have loved ones in other places. And as you've heard, that includes many people in Palestine, and that is affecting your neighbors right now. And we are withdrawing from public life a great deal because we get the message that our grief is inconvenient and it makes people uncomfortable. I want to ask the commission to approach the issue of fear thoughtfully and critically and compassionately. And what I mean by that is I know that you're subject to many requests. And I think that we can think about fear as really a few different types of things. There's very rational and sincerely held fears due to actual hate crimes and rises in anti-Semitism and anti-MENA hate and Islamophobia. There's sincerely held fear that is not actually rational, that's maybe grounded in our upbringings or other ideas that we have about other people, and that can be improved with education and relationship building oftentimes. But sadly, there's also the weaponization of fear that is not sincerely held, and we have a long history in the United States. I know that you know of that shameful dynamic, and I would really invite you to consider to start from a basis where everybody has dignity and deserves safety and human rights. And if people's basic humanity is being characterized as something that makes other people feel fearful, please stop and think twice about that. We've heard how Palestinian national symbols have been challenged. We've heard how the Arabic language in an educational display was said to make another student fearful. So I would just ask you, please, to approach those questions very thoughtfully.
Thank you, Shannon. The next speaker is Acer. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Well, I grew up in this community the past 40 plus years, and my best friend that I met back in grade school was Muslim. So over the years, I've witnessed discrimination from the time we were kids up until 9/11. When my best friend, when she was in law school at the time, she experienced a lot of discrimination. But as we talk about these recent events, she told me this is the worst it's ever been. And even though their community has grown larger than it was in 2001 and they're more organized, it's just the worst. So from my perspective, I just want to bring to your attention, as a surgeon, I'm very concerned about the medical community. And who I'm talking about are the Stanford doctors who have vocalized and publicly written in our prestigious journals hate and Islamophobia. And I'm worried that our Muslim patients are not being treated well. And worse, they may be harmed by the same people who promise to do no harm. So if healthcare is not safe, then we've lost. So I want to really bring this to your attention that we need to make some serious changes. And also remind you, Stanford is a place where we look for expertise and provide the best care for our patients. So if there are faculty that are racist, then we've lost. Lastly, I just want to say thank you for giving our community space to be heard, which this will also help overall with our community's mental health. And thank you so much. Ceasefire, save humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The last speaker is Elmer. Emer, I'm sorry. I saw an L, I'm sorry.
Hi, I want to thank you for creating this forum, and I've been very moved hearing all of these people speak. So my name is Emer Martin. I'm a resident here, and I've raised my kids here. I'm the mother of two Iranian Irish children. I'm married to an Iranian, and I've seen how I'm accepted as a white Irish immigrant. It's very different to how my Iranian family are accepted. We were at a party just last month, and my husband was being introduced to someone, and his friend, a longtime friend, said, I know what you're thinking, but I assure you he's educated, he has a PhD. And that was completely unprompted. And these are good friends of ours. So I'm going to use a lot of my friends of color and a lot of my friends from the Middle Eastern community. I said, should you speak here? And they said they were actually afraid. So I'm using my privilege just to say that people are frightened to speak on this, and they're frightened to speak out about the racism and killing of at least 16,000 Palestinians in 2 months. And to put that in perspective, that's over a quarter of Palo Alto city residents killed in 2 months. So that's the atmosphere of intimidation people are feeling. And I never thought we'd be scared to talk about other human beings like this. I think it was also very damaging when President Biden called those numbers into question, as if the Palestinians can't count their dead, or if they're dead, don't count really. So I'm a teacher. I teach a 6-week unit on the Holocaust. And one of the key lessons we teach is that atrocities happen when nice people don't speak out. So I think that's why it's really important for all of us here to speak out and take on the recommendations of Uzma and her group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amir. That is our last speaker, Chair.
Do we have one more? Come on, please.
My name is Constance, and I just want to say that as human beings, we are forced to witness the genocide of a people, the killing of Israelis was certainly bad, horrible. The genocide that is occurring regarding the Palestinian people is horrible. And as a human beings, like I said, it's a horrific thing, and it does things to your psyche, to your mental health. And it's painful to see that our media is one-sided and kind of values the worth of one set of people over another set of people. As an African American, I am very focused on all the harms that is occurring and has occurred against us, continues to occur against us. And so I'm just weary watching this genocide of the Palestinians, because a whole lot of that is happening on the continent of Africa also. It's just weary. And I think that we should all at least speak up and indicate that as human beings, we don't want to witness genocide on any side. But people have to be corrected, and it has to be acknowledged. I'm not appreciating the president saying he's on so-and-so has their back. Well, we need him to have our back as African Americans. And he needs to have the back of the Palestinian people, because this is horrific, horrible. I can't think of any other word to say. So I hope that you at least pass the ceasefire.
Thank you. That's the last speaker, Chair.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing this evening. At this point in time, I am going to open the floor for any commissioner that would like to ask questions or make comments. Commissioner Clausy.
I want to thank everyone who spoke tonight. It takes so much courage. It is so hard to speak on painful lived experience, and doing that, informing us of that experience, it's the only way that change happens. And I want to make sure that bravery is recognized with action. You gave such a fantastic presentation with very clear asks. I support everything in these asks. The only thing that I would like to add is there some way, I don't know if this is appropriate for me to ask staff, could somebody, is there a place I could find what mental health resources are available for the Muslim in MENA community?
I would say I would look at our general mental health partners like CARA, Project Safety Net, and see if they're developing specific programs towards that. I know staff has some connection list with those that provide mental health.
Perfect.
And see if there's anything specific that's being addressed at this time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And I believe I'm the liaison to the Libraries and Arts Center, and I'm happy to follow up with them on some of these asks. I'm also currently, the Vice Mayor and I are working on cultural celebrations. I used to work with the Palo Alto Recreation Fund, and one of the things that's been highlighted tonight is, and I had an op-ed about this out last month, is like when you go to cities like Redwood City and you at any point in the year, there's cultural celebrations happening. You can walk in, there is a cultural celebration happening, recognizing different communities. The Vice Mayor and I are working on like how we make that happen in Palo Alto. That is figuring out next steps. And I'm happy to give updates on that. That's something that I've been working on for several years now. And could I just ask a clarifying question of, were our speakers tonight, were they directed to only speak on local issues?
Yes, I did. I very clearly, when I structured this thing, and this is not just for the Muslim community, I want to be very clear on this. This is I gave the same instruction to both communities. I said, I need to deal with the lived experiences of the communities, and I want stuff that I can actually get my teeth in and push agenda through. I think you guys have done an absolutely phenomenal job of giving us clear, actionable items. Plus, you give us clear, actionable stories that I don't think anybody at this dais could ignore. So you got, at least you've gained a way stronger advocate in me. I can't speak for anybody else, but this moment will catalyze a lot of what we will work towards in the next upcoming months.
And I don't think there was any intention to ignore the global context.
It's unignorable, but I needed to try to at best meet the community where they are here today and just try to do as much as I physically can in this place.
Thank you. I believe that is all my questions or comments, and yep, I'm just going to be following up with the libraries and art centers, and also I know we also have a city newsletter that goes out that highlights cultural celebrations, community resources, literature, everything, and I will look into that.
Commissioner Corsi, I would work with Minka and Director O'Kane, because I know staff, one of the things City Council asked us to do and that we brought forward in October was the actual framework to get holidays and celebrations recognized. And I think you can accelerate it. We were just there. When were you there?
September 11th, I think, actually.
In October, September 11th and October. We were just there talking about the need for this framework. So let's really follow that up and say, look, we had this meeting and this is why we designed this. So I think we have momentum there.
That is all my questions and comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Kraus.
I want to thank every single person for being here, for being witness, to hearing your pain and what is happening in your daily lives. Thank you. I am an American Jew, and I can tell you today, I do not feel safe. I have never felt this way, in my life, but I do not feel safe. So you are not in isolation in any way, shape, or form. And the only issue I take up with this, Kwame, and you and I spoke about it, is that we weren't here together, talking to one another. Talking in isolation breeds isolation. Talking together is the beginning of change, and I hunger for that. Now, if I can clarify something about the rally, and the gentleman is not here. That rally, which was known as Bring Them Home, was a commemoration of the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. It was a commemoration of his yahrzeit. That's why the messaging was the way it was. I was there. I was not asked to speak by the organizers or the mayor, but I was there to hold her when she broke down in public, weeping for the atrocities. I will share one more thing with you that has changed my life, which was yesterday. I was read in on the graphic details of the sexual violence perpetrated on the Jewish women on October 7th by Hamas. I didn't turn my audio off. I wish I had. And we as women that are the healers of this world must speak up. And we can never let rape and sexual violence be used as an instrument of war, ever again. You know, I do human rights work in getting the highest risk people out of Afghanistan because of sexual violence. They're LGBTQ and they are tortured and they are violated, and I grab them before they're executed. So I want you to think on that. I know it's words, I'm a Jew, but I speak from my heart and I will move this forward, but I look forward to communication, to the ability of us to speak and share with one another going forward, because this must stop.
Any of the commissioners?
I can go next.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for being here. I'm happy so many of you were able to join us and share your experiences with us. It truly, makes it so that we can't turn away, that we have to face it. And it's something, it's hard to face. I'm a criminal defense attorney and I just deal with terrible things all day long. So it's really forced me to focus in on, and hearing from you. Sometimes, it's just too much. That's all I hear all day. So, but I'm happy to be here and be of service and do what needs to be done. Hearing from your experiences in Palo Alto, and maybe I was also naive, has been shocking to me, especially what's happening at the schools. And one story that really stood out to me that's really concerning is the kite runner lesson and having to take out Arabic. And I mean, it is especially concerning to me because then it becomes institutionalized. And that is, just cannot happen. So my question, first of all, is, did anybody talk to this teacher? Did anybody talk to the principal? What's happening with that? Does anybody know?
I think there was a lot of could you come to the microphone, please?
Yes.
You
just press the
oops. I think there was a lot of fear to report in our community, to make formal reports. I don't believe if the report was made, but I can follow up on that.
And do you know which school that was?
It was that gun. And as far as I know, I mean, if I don't remember the details, but there may have been a parent that spoke to someone at the school, but I don't think there was anything formal. None of the things that have happened have had any formal reports because of the fear. Students did not feel safe to do that. And there have been a lot of people trying to get students to speak up, and they're not willing to. So the most that they could do was speak at the board, some students speak at the board meeting.
I just want to say one thing, and I think it takes somebody that's a minority to actually know this. And this is why we structured the meeting like this. It's a different kind of pressure when you're the minority and you're in the room with the others. Whatever the other looks like. And it was one of the other ladies I met with, I was very clear. I was like, I want to make sure that this space was a space where there was nobody commenting or hissing or where you could share your experience. I will make a motion to do an action item where we can do some unity stuff. But how the old saints used to put it, we need some kitchen table time where we could actually share some stories and spend some time. So I understand those students. I'm a 47-year-old man. I preach every Sunday and say what I have to say. And especially around race, where we are the minority in the community, it can be difficult for me to say stuff. So I can only imagine what a 14, 15, 16, or 17-year-old in school trying to figure it out is trying to do. So I understand why things aren't officially reported. And I wouldn't, if it was my child, oh no, I'm not going to put them through that.
Well, I was asking which school was it because, I have children at Pally, so I'd be happy to send an email, but I don't have connections at God. I'm sorry? No, I'm sure. I'm just this specific example, I think. Well,
So the way the state, the laws in California, this is actually a legal thing. The only people that can actually respond to us at this point are our 3 presenters. So the gentleman, Uzma, no, he's right here. He came back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was way more important than me. And I'm sorry, man. Samaya? No. Oh, you was. Oh, okay. Samaya. Okay, I'm sorry. Samaya. So those are the 3 people that can respond at this time. For example, we can't have response from public comment. So that's just the way the state of California structures these meetings. Thank you. I'll be here. I'll be here long after, and we'll create. You and I will talk. We'll create some other spaces. All right.
Okay, Commissioner Savage.
Commissioner Savage.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
I had one more thing to say, and I think it's important to bring it out that am really thankful for Sarah speaking up about how people who are not Jewish, are not Muslim, feel, and I'm one of them, that we feel silenced, that we cannot speak up. We have Jewish friends, we have Muslim friends, and we look at the media and we look at Facebook and we hear from our neighbors and friends, and we feel like anything that we say that we're going to be attacked too. So, I'm still navigating that, just like I think a lot of people. And I'm really thankful that we heard from allies tonight. I think that's important. And I think that that's the first step. I think we're beginning to get to that point, which is late, I know, but there's a lack of language and what to say, and feeling that our, that the way that we feel is valid, and sharing those thoughts. So I'm really, really thankful for the allies that spoke up tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Savage.
Oh, yeah, well, like everyone else here, I just want to thank all of you for your heartfelt, candid, and emotional comments. And I also want to point out the comments made by Commissioner Kraus and Vice Chair Eberly. Just courageous statements all around. I was particularly moved by the students, what's been going on there. And frankly, it makes me uncomfortable to know that's happening here in Palo Alto. So thank you for your courage, all of you, and for opening our eyes.
Thank you so much. Any other commissioner statements?
One thing I forgot. Please stay in touch, because we need to continue this dialogue, because we always need to know what is happening in order to have effective policy. Also, for planning community celebrations, one of the things that the vice mayor and I have found, we need to know who our community partners are. So again, please stay in touch.
Okay. All right. At this point, what I would like to do is this. We can't vote on anything because this is a discussion item. But what I can do is add agenda planning tonight. I would like to add as an action item for January's meeting to discuss the recommendations that were given to us and the steps needed to move them forward. There is one thing that we will do that doesn't require a vote or action item, which is just the connection with the chief of police. I've texted with him tonight. He is looking forward to having the conversation. Minka has Uzma's email? Yeah. Okay. Yes, so we will do this. We'll work together on that and we will get that done, I hope, before that January meeting. And then we can have the discussion on next steps to fulfill the list that you provided, which I want to really thank your community for being transparent, honest, and really bringing forward some real things that will be effective. I personally think it's just a start. Those recommendations on the paper in no way erase anything. I think they just open the door for further dialogue and discussion. I think celebrating holidays and stuff brings people to the table. But I think this is just one step in the many steps that need to happen. So, yes. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say, in terms of, one of the things I hope comes out of this, I think at the end of the day, a lot of this is because of a lack of education and a lack of just knowledge, right? And talking to my high schooler and some of her friends, they just want it's huge to them to just even have a holiday. And it sounds so small, but for instance, in my elementary school, when we've done, the other moms, or like Uzma was saying, she would go in and read a book. We've all done that in our kids' classrooms. Just as an example, a couple of years ago, our librarian at our elementary school, she just did it on her own. She did a school-wide, every class. She would read a book about Ramadan to every class and just do a whole lesson on it. And it felt huge. It felt like we didn't have to ask for it.
You didn't have to fight for it.
We didn't have to go do it ourselves. And it's not a given. It's the first and only time I've ever seen it. And unfortunately, that librarian has moved away. And I hope that our new librarian continues to do that. But it's those small things, or even having a festival, a literary something. It teaches. So my daughter is one of the co-presidents of the Mina Club at Pali. And, the things that they want to focus on, the cultural things, the heritage, because that stuff is never talked about, right? Their experience is about being tied to terrorism, being looked at as other. And they're like, we have these amazing, vibrant cultures and traditions, and we don't get to showcase that. And I honestly feel that if that happens in our town regularly, there's more opportunity for everybody, even if someone's not part of that community, to learn and to get the right language, and to have an understanding of histories and all of that. And at the end of the day, that's going to help in all, no matter what conflict is happening in the world. And we know there's always something, right? But it's that connection, it's that education that can really just help us. And we're the city to do it, right? We have the education, we have the people. We just, I think, just kind of keep things under the radar, sort of. And I think we need to be brave enough to bring that out and show and teach everybody in the community.
I agree. Listen, I celebrated Juneteenth. You know, when that happened, it was a big deal for our community. So I get it. I like Black History Month. I get it. And I think I agree with you. There's a South African word, when they greet each other, it's called "Seu Bueno." It means I see you, you see me. And I think we want to get to a place where I see you and you see me. I think you already see me, but do I see you? And I think that is what this commission can start putting the seed in the ground for, so that we see you not just at a commission meeting, but at festivals and holidays and book places, and not as a part of our community that we deal with as something happening on the world stage, but as people that live in our community that we see at the restaurant and walking down the street, and you don't have to cross the street, or you don't have to, we say hi and we wave, and it's just part of our community. And we want to normalize it in a very significant way. I don't know that we have all the answers, but I think we're going to try. And that's the best I can promise. Anything else, commissioners? Thank you, Commissioner Savage, for sticking around. Yes, Isma. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that mic.
So we had a conversation with Minka about this session, and we were told to keep it local. And we respected that.
You did a phenomenal job with that. I'm so grateful. And
and I feel, but one of the commissioners, Commissioner Cross, in her comments did not keep it local. And I felt really uncomfortable understanding why that happened in this forum. I'm a little confused on why it was we were told
we were all given the same instruction set,
that why the rapes were brought up and why LGBTQ in Afghanistan was brought up. I felt like maybe there was an insinuation that our community is backwards, and that our community does not condemn violence, which we did, and we have over and over again. We did it in the school board resolution. We condemned Hamas and the horrific attacks. Ahmed said it again here. So my head was spinning a little bit, and I did not feel comfortable not bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, you can respond.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. I just apologized. I said, I'm sorry. I had just been debriefed, and that's why I mentioned it. So I'm really sorry I made you feel uncomfortable. That was not intentional.
Thank you for your apology. I appreciate that. I know that's not easy to do.
No, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So I will tell you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to end the meeting, to end this item, where we can at least see each other and say, and share feelings, and people say, I was wrong. Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you, everyone. I'm going to give us a 5-minute break before we do our next item. I want to shake some of your hands, say hi, and thank you all so much for coming tonight. One, commissioners, if you could please come so we could do our next item. You guys not gonna stay? No, I'm joking. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
We're only, it's four.
Oh.
It's 4 out of 7.
I gotta keep thinking we're 8. I must have a ghost.
Yeah, we did the map earlier today.
Yeah. Sumaya is a good friend of mine. Our kids went to preschool together. Sumaya.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was she?
She what? Or I mean, we talk all the time.
That's very good.
There's Yasmin.
Hi, Yasmin. Okay. We are now coming back to this meeting. We have a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. Where we're going to talk about a presentation on contemporary California reparations movement for African Americans. It is a discussion. We'll ask Vice Chair Eberly to do the introduction, please.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. So we're going to have 2 speakers today. And first one is Wesley Cox. She's a reparation. She's not.
Yasmin.
Wesley? Oh, Yasmin is first.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Are we taking a break between the 2 of them?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. So the first one is Yasmin Abdusami Oakley. She's a mother, artist, activist, and she's the lead organizer for East Palo Alto reparations. And then after her, we'll have Wesley Cox, who is a reparations research fellow at the African American Community Service Agency. And we're going to learn about what California is doing for reparations. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yasmin Abdusami Oakley. I am not an official person with the California Reparations Task Force. I am just a concerned community member that has just do my best to pull community members together and help them learn about the reparations process. I believe that there was a problem with the mass communication from the task force where they kind of dropped the ball on letting everybody know about this. Maybe funds were limited. I don't know what the reason is, but myself and members of our community, we feel compelled to tell this story about why descendants of enslavement in this country need repair. I'm from East Palo Alto, born and raised. I grew up, I went to MA. My mother is a community activist from East Palo Alto. So I'm just kind of representing that long line of African American activism from East Palo Alto. Next slide, please. So yes, our organization is East Palo Alto for Reparations, and we educate and inform the public about reparative justice. We advocate on the behalf of African Americans who are descendants of chattel enslavement in the United States, who have roots in East Palo Alto. We perform our work under the, umbrella of the Armina Ross Foundation. And that is a foundation out of East Palo Alto who connect community members who have been formerly incarcerated with resources. So just want to shout them out. Next slide. So over the last year, our organization, East Palo Alto for Reparations, has followed the California Reparations Task Force. We have had several information sessions for the East Palo Alto community, 3 in person and 2 online. We also take community members to the task force meetings. And it was amazing. It was like seeing history unfold, seeing the passionate testimony of the community members, as well as testimony from experts in finance and economics and in history. Next slide, please. So during this presentation, I'm going to speak a lot about the descendant American community. You might ask, what is a descendant American? That is kind of a little short name that we have come up with for descendants who are, or for people who are descendants of persons who were enslaved in this country and then emancipated in this country by the Emancipation Proclamation. We are that community. We are the civil rights movement. We are the people who went through Jim Crow. We are the people who have dealt with mass incarceration and all kinds of things in this country. We are the face of those people. We are not people who are quote unquote slaves in a history book. We are really those people. This is our lineage. And we are looking at strengthening community through the lens of the contemporary reparations movement. So we will ask you to learn with us, to support us, and to empower us by centering descendant Americans so that they can tell their story in East Palo Alto and in Palo Alto, of course. We know that Palo Altans that are African American, they have a distinct history in Palo Alto. They were only allowed to live on certain streets. The presentation that we just saw from the Muslim American Palo Altans was very powerful. And it was very powerful because it was so triggering, because a lot of the things that this community is going through now, we have been going through them since we existed in this country. So next slide, please. So during the time of the Reparations Task Force, they met for 2 years. They had about 17 hearings, and it was their job to create, to develop a plan and to study to see if they can come up with a plan for reparations for specifically for descendants of people enslaved in this country. And first they had to kind of define that community of eligibility with much controversy. So I believe it was in March of 21, they came up with a vote. So it was 5-4 that reparations in California should be lineage based. And then that is my belief, and it is many people's belief that throughout the country that the community of eligibility would include African Americans who are descendants of a chattel enslaved person, or the descendants of a free Black person living in the United States prior to the 19th century. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of the task force. We have Camila Moore in the top corner. She it was the chair of the task force, and she still does many speaking engagements. So anyone from the task force would be a great pick. But of course, I love Miss Camila. She's the task force chair, and she did a really good job at keeping the task force on task and helping them understand how to serve descendants of emancipated people. Next, we have Dr. Amos Brown from San Francisco. We have Miss Montgomery Stepp from San Diego. We have Dr. Jovan Scott Lewis from UC Berkeley. We have Dr. Cheryl Grills from, I believe, Loyola Marymount. And we have Senator Stephen Bradford. We have Attorney Don Tamaki. We have Miss Lisa Holder and Reginald Jones Sawyer. I believe he also is a senator or assemblyman. I can't remember it right this second. But everyone on the task force is of the lineage except 2 people. Dr. Jovan Lewis is of Jamaican descent, and Dr. Don Tamaki is Japanese, and he has expertise in working with Japanese reparations. And I'm pointing that out because it takes a lot of people to get this job done. We all are not going to be of the same background or lineage, but that expertise is still important, especially once you understand, as far as dealing with reparations, especially once you understand who has been harmed, and how to get that that benefit to those people that are harmed directly. And I think that everyone on the task force, they did they did the best that they could do with really trying to understand that. I have a quote here from Dr. Jovan Scott Lewis, and he says, "We are not recommending to give money to African Americans, descendants of U.S. slavery. We are recommending to return money to African Americans, descendants of U.S. slavery." And I think that this quote it sticks out to me because we understand that this is a debt that is owed to the descendants of enslavement. We never were compensated correctly after our enslavement. And I think that people who really understand history will understand that. Next slide, please. So we look at the harms done to descendant Americans. Guys, I'm sorry, my little boy is right here. He wants me to do something for him. I'm trying to not do it. we look at enslavement, Jim Crow, convict leasing. We look at terror and violence. We look at redlining. We look at mass incarceration, the failed war on drugs, the inadequate education system, unjust legal system, housing discrimination, and economic exclusion. And to learn more about how the task force came up with these harms, I would encourage you all to read the California Reparations Task Force interim report. They also have an executive summary that is a little bit shorter. Our reparations group is actually reading that now. And then the final report kind of contains all of the work that the task force has done over the last 2 years. So please read it. Stay in touch with us. You'll have your opportunity to read it with us. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the history of reparations has been going on ever since our emancipation. We have used several ways to try to fight for this. Different people throughout the years, like Miss Callie House, and later on Queen Mother Audley Moore, and a host of other people, including the National Coalition for Blacks for Reparations in America, have kept reparations in the mainstream, in the limelight. I think that right now is the most vocal the reparations movement has ever been. Also because us as African Americans, we are the freest that we've ever been. So we can speak on these issues. We can talk about these issues without fear of discrimination or retaliation. But those things, it come with the territory. I would also give you a tip to please read From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century by Dr. William A. Darity and R. Kristen Mullen. These are two of the economists that worked on behalf of the California Reparations Task Force with the Department of Justice here in California, to come up with a lot of the criteria, and find out what they can actually quantify to give us repair in the state of California and also throughout the country. We do want reparations to be a federal movement eventually. Next slide, please. So the contemporary reparations movement, in 2020, Dr. Shirley Weber authored the AB 3121 that created the Reparations Task Force. Our governor signed it into law. and the DOJ was assigned to carry out the work of the task force. As I mentioned, it was, I think when I wrote this, we had only been up to 15 hearings, but by the end of the life of the task force, they did about 17 hearings. They voted for eligibility. The task force released the interim report. So, it's been quite a journey with the task force. I kind of miss it now that it's over. I miss going to those meetings. I miss seeing all the community members just really tell their experience and tell their story. So that is something that we try to do at our information events, is we try to give descendants room to tell their experiences, how they came to California, how their families came to California, the successes that they've had, as well as the harms. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So the California Reparations Task Force uses the 5 standards of reparations according to the United Nations. And that is restitution is one of the first standards. I'm so sorry, you guys. My little boy is just making so much noise. It's kind of late for us.
It's all right. We all have kids. We'll get through it. Take your time.
Thank you so much. So our first standard is restitution. This is returning anything that was taken from a people that has to do with land and space that is centered on descendants. Can you be quiet? Okay. Excuse me, guys. Okay. So we had to do restitution. We have compensation. It's not reparations if they don't cut the check, right? So we have rehabilitation, which has to do with our medical and physical health, as well as mental health. We have satisfaction, which is how we honor our ancestors. Buildings we name buildings after them. We make murals after them. We make statues after them. To just kind of, this is a part of our healing process as a people. And lastly is guarantee of non-repetition, which is policy. Basically creating policy, creating legislation that will protect us as a group. Next slide, please. The task force, they for some reason, they love to do things in 5s. So now we have the 5 key areas of harm, which are health harms, health discrimination and homelessness, unjust property takings, mass incarceration and over-policing, and devaluation of Black businesses. And these are basically the 5 harms that the task force can use to create compensation for African Americans. Some things we won't be able to create compensation for. The loss of life was too great. So these are the 5 things that they have deemed they can put a price tag on, so to speak. Next slide, please. So we would like to say thank you to the Palo Alto Human Relations Commission. We would like for you to learn with us by reading the final report. We would like for you to support EPA for reparations by co-hosting a reparations information session for Palo Alto residents. Our organization mostly serves East Palo Alto just because we feel like East Palo Alto needs that specific representation as our numbers are dwindling in the peninsula. But we are very much interested in Palo Alto. We know that Palo Alto has its own distinct history as far as African Americans go in their local history. So we would like for you to empower the descendant Americans of Palo Alto by supporting a reparations listening session to center the experiences of African Americans who have roots in Palo Alto. We don't know, we don't know what would come of it. Maybe something wonderful would come of it. And we're not even saying that we want a commission in Palo Alto. We are just saying that let's start centering the descendants and start listening to their stories and experiences. And I'm sure something beautiful will come from that, just like it has come from our work in East Palo Alto. Next slide. So here are different ways to connect with EPA for reparations. You can email us at reparationsforepa@gmail.com. Please follow our Facebook, East Palo Alto for Reparations, and please follow our Instagram at East Palo Alto #4 Reparations. And is there another slide after this? If not, then I think it's all good. Thank you again. Oh, I do want to share two more things that is coming up. East Palo Alto for Reparations is a year old, so please support us in some kind of way. We love donations. We love volunteers. We love spaces to hold our reparations listening sessions. So please support us in some kind of way. Just reach out to us to learn how. And we do have our first piece of legislation for reparations coming up. It is SB 49 to create, SB 490 to create a California Freedmen's Affair Agency. This will be a genealogy office to help people qualify for reparations, and a lot of other goodies. So we will definitely be pushing this first piece of legislation next year. And we have about 12 pieces of legislation coming out. So I would love to come back and speak with you more about that. So thank you again. Everybody have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much. We'll hold our questions. We have Wesley next, and then we can ask some questions.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Wesley Cox. I work for the African American Community Service Agency, and I am the Reparations Research Fellow. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you, Yasmin, because you cover like all of the technical stuff about the California Reparations Task Force, which I did not. So this is perfect. But anyway, thank you. And it is an honor to be here tonight. So I appreciate you all having me. And next slide, please. Actually, wait, I guess I should say this. The African American Community Service Agency, we just celebrated 45 years in San Jose. So that's something to know. I don't want to miss that. Anyway, this is just a quick overview. I just want to talk about highlights that we've been working on. The Reparations Advisory and Action Coalition. We published an op-ed over a year ago, which is very weird to say out loud, but it's been a while. Just our contact with elected officials, outreach and community involvement, social media programs, and future plans. Next slide, please. So everything that's been really cool so far with this work has really been getting involved with community members, also gauging like the climate about reparations. We had a town hall in, I think, February 2022. The years have been going by fast, y'all, excuse me. And I'm coming up on my second year anniversary at the agency. So I had to do some thinking now and really trying to establish networks with community. People reach out, email, they want to get connected, talk, come to a meeting, attending different reparations meetings. So I've also been following the state. I attend the San Francisco reparations meetings. I look over some of the minutes or meetings, notes from around the country. So Asheville, what's going on in Evanston, Illinois with Robin Ruth Simmons, and first repair, different things of that nature. And I think the last time we heard anything about HR 40 was, it's almost been like 2 years, sadly. But anyway, just being up to date on those things and informing the community as well. And really social media and our newsletters. So I'll talk more about that. But I like to push out information in trinkets and with graphics at times. So I'll kind of show you all some of that. And also meeting with elected officials. We have done that within basically the first half of this year. So really from January up until like July, we were meeting with elected officials in San Jose City Council, speaking with them, telling them about the work that we're doing with reparations and so on. And we also in August drafted a local report, mainly focusing on the city of San Jose. And we're still working on that. We are trying to work with like a librarian and some archivists to get more information on Black San Jose. So anyway, next slide, please. So last summer, or 2 summers ago, right, July 2022, we essentially started to form the Reparations Advisory and Action Coalition after our Juneteenth festival. And we had a few people in the community who already were in communication with our admin and knew that this was something we were looking to work on and started communicating with us. And so we've kind of grown from 15 members to approximately like 55. And there's just people that have signed up, whether it's at like an event, we email out, or they saw something maybe on our newsletter or our social media. And it really is about creating community, but also education. Am I freezing?
You're good now.
Okay, sorry. Hope my computer's not overheating. Anyway, sorry, it's really about creating community. And sidebar, I'm getting a PhD in education, so I feel like most of the meetings when I'm talking, it's very educational. And I like to just keep people up to date on like what's going on, having conversations, doing some icebreakers. And that coalition is really cool because it's not just people in California. We have people from New York. We have people who are kind of paying attention to things. It's not just in the Bay Area. There's people in LA, the Bay, and what have you. And we've been able to make community that way and keep an eye on what's happening nationally. And so we've kind of talked about this, but if we're looking and paying attention to other cities and states, we're actually seeing like a nationwide reparations movement. It's not just in California. I think the thing that's specific to California is that our actual state legislature was the part that was pushing reparations commission. But we're looking across the nation, we're seeing these pop up in different cities and like more of a local region rather than a state. So I think that's important to note. We can move on to the next slide because of time. Some of the things we touched on. So we talked about our expectations and our goals. That's one of the first things that we did in RAC. That's also what we call ourselves for short. We talked about education and reparations, the state itself, San Jose and Santa Clara County and the attitudes and reparations. And also looking at like the city budget, the state budget, do we fit in there? And that's just been a really large conversation, which, some of us will argue should not be the focal point of the conversation. The conversation should be about repair and justice, not necessarily like, oh, what's the dollar amount or, what can we do? I think the dollar amount should come on the end of things, right? The tail end, just like the California Reparations Task Force. Let's first get something going, have conversations, bring awareness, and then we could do calculations later. But that shouldn't be barring us from creating a task force or doing more research. And also with our drafted report, we did do a meeting, I believe that was in August or September with our coalition, and we just told them about some of the topics that we touched on, gave some snapshots into the items. So we could go on to the next slide. This is a draft resolution. It's not, in stone, but essentially we want to recognize and have recognition, right? Just like many people have asked for tonight, that this is a thing that we've had a California Reparations Task Force that was in place for 2 years. And that has been speaking about harms that have happened to Black Americans, specifically in California, right? And no city is like necessarily exempt from this. That's the other thing, like that report, if you read it, if you read parts of it, if you even want to open up the document and go Command F and search up Palo Alto or San Jose or San Francisco or Los Angeles, whatever city you want, you're going to find that there's like, cases of injustice happening all over the state. It's not just targeted to one area. So I think that's really important. And so I think that as a county, And as a city, like we need to recognize that this is something that's affected all of us. And it's still having effects today. I'm not gonna read the whole resolution again because of time, but this is just a draft. We can go on to the next slide, please. Quickly talking about our op-ed, it was inspirational to publish, honestly, and I don't want to say it's the first thing. Actually, no, it's the first thing that reparations kind of put out there as a team from the agency. And I think it was a really big deal. And we really did appreciate working with San Jose Spotlight. And there was some pushback with the publication, if we're being honest, and people weren't necessarily being supportive, but we also had great allies and people who are part of our coalition who were in the comments, like giving, fact checks and what have you. But the op-ed is still out. You can still read it. But this is really just like a very great way for us to bring more awareness to what's happening with reparations, to talk about in the Bay Area, to tell people what the African American Community Service Agency is doing, and also to invite people to come have conversations with us in RAC. So anyway, next slide. Our outreach efforts. So we've also been in contact with members of the California Reparations Task Force. More recently, I think, some time has freed up, which is amazing. So we've been in touch with Don Tamaki and also Kamala Moore. And funnily enough, I ran into Lisa Holder on an airplane coming back from a conference in DC, but that's another story for another time. We've had Dr. Shirley Weber come and be a panelist. We've also been in contact with people in the Los Angeles Reparations Commission, and Robin Lee Simmons, again, technically speaking, she is the first woman to author a reparations bill that's passed in the country. It's not just a proposal, but like an actual tangible resolution. So in Evanston, Illinois, if you are a resident, you own a home, or you once lived in Evanston, you have evidence of that, you could get up to $25,000 to essentially assist you with your property ownership. So you could pay off your mortgage, you could renovate. I forget, there's a third option for the 20. Oh, or you could do a down payment on a new house. So that's like official. Evanston is using its marijuana, or as you want to say, cannabis tax revenue to fund that. And there's also a documentary on that. And then we've also worked with a few other nonprofits. Next slide, please. Talked about meeting with elected officials. Again, we're just really trying to scope out like support people who believe in justice, racial justice, economic justice for Black people in Santa Clara County. I'll move on from this slide, please. Black History Month, we actually did a presentation with Black at Netflix and the American Leadership Forum. So that was really cool. And we just did a presentation on the history of reparations, what's happening in the state. Our op-ed again, what RAC is and how people can get informed. And also, what was important about this meeting? Oh, we had Dr. Reverend Amos Brown, who is part of the San Francisco African American Reparations Commission, basically come and speak to us. It was virtually, but it was still great. But anyway, it was great to actually spread awareness about reparations, even in a corporate setting, which I feel like hasn't been done a lot. So that was good. Next slide, sorry. 1 second. We also have a leadership academy with AACSA. So I'm not in charge of the leadership academy, but I was asked to come and do a presentation. And so I think this was a really cool moment. Essentially, some of these people who are in the leadership academy, they're students, they're in high school, they're in community college, they're at San Jose State, what have you. And they may not, be necessarily paying attention to reparations and maybe background noise to them. But what we were able to do was kind of talk to them, speak about the programs that should happen, if they had any opinions on it, what eligibility meant, right, which Jasmine brought up, and who qualifies, and also something that the California Reparations Task Force was talking about in its close, that sounds weird. The Reparations Task Force kept talking about damages and timeframes. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. And so they were giving out, like if you bought a house from 1930 in California to 1970, you're probably eligible because you were probably redlined or you had a high mortgage, right? And so really giving the students that language to talk about timeframes and what that meant. And if we even look at like the payments or the economists, this is all based off of like timeframes. So that's something to acknowledge and think about as well. And also think about lineage and family stories. So it's also been mentioned, I think Yasmin also mentioned this, is that we're looking to establish, some type of Freedmen's Bureau in the state of California. And what does that mean and what does that look like? A lot of people have talked about having some type of family documents, having lineage, getting genealogy done, and what have you. So I was just telling students also, like, hey, if you have death certificates or photos or any type of documentation about your family in California, maybe even like a deed for a home, right? These are important things to have, and maybe talk to your older family members or a grandparent or something and collect this type of data. Next slide, please. This is just some quick snapshots of our Instagram. So we had a very fun time basically informing people on what the California Reparations Task Force was doing, and it hasn't necessarily ended. And so now I'm just kind of like letting people know, if anyone follows us, we may have some students from San Jose State or San Francisco State or someone in the area that is actually from Los Angeles or has family in Los Angeles. So even telling them, hey, LA is also kicking off webinars right now. They're doing a Black Experience study in Los Angeles with Cal State Northridge. And they've been hosting webinars for like the last 2 months, essentially asking Black Angelenos for video testimonies in order to compile into a database. So that's also important to spread that information. Next slide, please. And then our newsletter, I talked about this a little bit, but these are just some things that I've written up in the newsletter just to talk about what's going on, and also just making it more accessible, giving people quick snapshots. The final report for the California Reparations Task Force has come out to like over 1,000 pages. And, not everyone has the leisure and the time to sit down and read a 1,000-page book. So just giving people snapshots, information, recaps, and also links that they can click on and look at is important. Next slide, please. I talked about this, but I'll just go over it really quickly. So in our draft reparations for Santa Clara County and San Jose, we did a historical overview. We talked about the population. So we actually look at census data. You'll see that the Black population reached its peak in like the 70s and the 80s. And then when we see, different administration and policy and dog whistling on the war on drugs, you start to see a decline in the Black population. And, as we see gentrification, tech companies, all that boom, you still start to see a decline in the Black population in Santa Clara County and San Jose. So we wanted to capture that in our draft and talk about that. We also talked about segregation and redlining. You can easily go online and find a redlining map or a redlined map of San Jose, maybe even Palo Alto, right, or Santa Clara County, and talking about this to reference how, maybe homes are appraised today, or values or inheritance and wealth. We talked about the criminal legal system, education, the California Reparations Task Force. We also talked about ourselves, the coalition, and also we brought in San Jose and the Racial Equity Department. And of course, we include the resolution and some recommendations. Next slide, please. So that's pretty much all I have for you. If you would like to get in contact with me, you can email me at reparations@sjaacsa.org, or you could go on our website too, which is sjaacsa.org. And you could click on the info page. You can find my email and you can get in contact with me, and I will do my best to help you out with whatever your questions are. That's all I have, though. Thank you so much.
I want to thank both of you for your continued advocacy on a very important topic. I admire both of you for doing this work. I think it is absolutely critical work. I would love to hear your take on, given the high tax base in the Silicon Valley area, if you see the possibility of towns like a Palo Alto, a San Jose, a Sunnyvale, or coming up with something in their tax base to do reparations locally. Do you see that as a better path, or do you see that as just a small stepping stone to larger work?
Who's going first?
I'm trying to.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to go. Before I answer that question, we have a community member, Constance French. I'm not sure if she's still in the building, but she's from EPA for reparations, and she was going to give a community member testimony. I don't know if she's there still, but
He did give testimony on the last item, but
she did.
her van to take
Oh,
her
okay.
home came.
Oh, I
So
see.
we apologize to her, but
No
she
worries,
was,
no
I did
worries.
speak to her. She was very informative.
Yeah,
Thank her for her attendance.
she is. Thank you. And to answer your question, sir, I really enjoyed how the California Reparations Task Force looked at many ways to create funds for reparations for descendant Americans. And what you just said, tacking or coming up with a small percentage from these large incomes in Silicon Valley is definitely one route to take. And that's my take on
Yeah,
it.
I was just gonna add in, I think what we are seeing across the nation is that having, local government put their hands on this is expediting the process. I mean, we've had HR 40 sitting around in the, on the Hill or in the whatever you want to say. It's been sitting around in DC since the 80s, which is a shame. People have come and gone and passed away since that's been introduced. And then you could go through a city or county or local level and see much more community involvement and it get expedited. I definitely still do think that the federal government should have a say in this and should do something. I mean, Black people literally built the White House, right? But I think that the local level may be much more influential, and I think it can eventually influence the federal passing of some type of legislation. And it may not be HR 40, The other thing I'll add real quick is that HR 40 is really it's only a study. If you read the bill, it's not saying if you sign this, we're gonna pay people anything. It's literally a study. And so for over 20 years, or actually 30, gosh, sorry. We've refused to say, yes, we'll study this, despite the fact that there's a whole Black museum now on the mall. Anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah, you actually don't want to study what you know is wrong. But I thank you both for all you shared. The commissioners, if anybody else would like to ask questions.
I have a question. Thank you so much for sharing. I will say that the report is a little overwhelming. Just the executive summary is 70, it's like I think 75 pages. So I appreciate you coming and talking to us and bringing out the key points. It sounds from your presentations that one of the steps now is to educate people on the task force findings. Is that my understanding? And then I saw that there are some policy recommendations. Is it just to gain momentum to behind those, to get our legislatures to then act? What are the next steps?
Well, from my point of view, that is what is next. We are the recommendations that have come from the task force's final report are being turned into legislation. And then once we have that legislation, we are asking our elected officials to please to vote on our behalf. And I'm sorry, I have a little one pulling on me right now, so I can't answer the question the best way I can. But we have policy in pretty much every area addressing environmental infrastructure, unjust property takings, political disenfranchisement. One of the policies is to increase funding to address racial disparities. We like I said, we're already doing the Freedmen's Agency. Excuse me, I keep saying bureau, but it's really an agency here in California. And as Wesley mentioned, all of this is to push for momentum for the federal. Really, even our economist, Dr. Sandy Darity, he agrees that reparations is only supposed to come from a federal level. Anything else is state atonement, local atonement. But we are having the most action at the state level, at the local levels right now. And that is not just in California, as Wesley stated, it is all over the country.
I would also just say that the new year is going to be important, especially in the state of California, because we sunsetted, as they say, we sunsetted that commission. And so, yeah, everything's being turned to legislation now. So really they're talking about, the Senate, the California State Assembly, and the next steps there, and how people will vote in terms from getting this as, a bill, or I should say a report to a bill, to it actually being like actionable, rather than us just having something cute and pretty in a book and saying, oh, we did a study, but we're not going to do anything about the findings. So yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? I will get Yasmin and Wesley. I don't know if you know, I pastored the oldest African American church in the peninsula. So I'd love to connect with both of you and give you some space and time to talk to some of the nice people in Palo Alto that are Black and not Black. So they can help us. All right. I'll get your info from staff and other commissioners. Thank you both for sticking with us till 9:28. We told you we are going to talk to you at 7:30. It's 9:28. Do we have public comment?
Yes, Chair, we do.
Who is it? Aaron James?
We have, yes, we have two speakers. You ready for me, Javad? Great. We'll start with Mary Gloner. Mary, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone. Earlier, I spoke in a professional capacity, but today I proudly speak on an individual capacity. I'm such pleased. Thank you, Yasmina, for your leadership in East Palo Alto, and Wesley for our county, and to you, the commissioner, and especially Pastor Smith, for elevating it. Some of you may not know, I am a native East Palo Alton. My family came into East Palo Alto almost 6 decades ago, but Palo Alto was the community that educated me, that provided me a job, that provided service. So while some of my hopes and what I've learned and being on the Race Equity Action Leadership Coalition is using my own power and privilege that I have to really bring this to light. I think it's important to also be aware that while East Palo Alto is doing the work, it's also remember that many Black East Palo Altans were critical to serving Palo Alto, and whether it's providing a business base to buy the goods or to serve the people. And I think it's important for the city of Palo Alto and through the leadership, the Human Relations Commission, to really continue in their leadership role of innovation in that brand, whether it's youth suicide, but also reparations, to model it for other high capacity community. And then lastly, what's also one of City of Palo Alto's strengths, they have this revenue line that many cities don't have through utilities. And that might be something that this city may want to explore, and how to advance and elevate and model how to really move these into action. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And hold on a second.
Mr. James?
Hold on. Aaron, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Both speakers were extraordinary. Pastor Smith, thank you for bringing this forward. I've tried with Palo Alto City Council for years, and I've written on this subject to get them to say the word reparations, and only Greg Tanaka is willing to do that. I would love this, Pastor, if you could bring this to a study session with these two wonderful, well-informed speakers. One thing I wanted to mention, I've been a member of the state bar as a criminal defense attorney. This is my 45th year. And one of the wonderful things is a colleague at the public defender's office put forward AB Penal Code Section 745 that's now part of the law to reduce mass incarceration, and that's the Racial Justice Act, Penal Code 745. And I'm going to read you a little bit about the legislative intent. A quote, a growing awareness that no degree of amount of racial bias is tolerable in a fair and just criminal justice system, that racial bias is often insidious, and that purposeful discrimination is often masked and racial animus disguised. Examples of racism that pervade the criminal justice system are too numerous to list. I have been passionate about this issue. Every member of my family, except myself here in California, is a descendant of what you call the American community. All of my family, my sons, my stepson, my grandkids are African American descendants, my wife as well. I'm just a Jewish dude, but for me, this is my family. And I say this jokingly with the family, but it's serious. When I'm gone, reparations for my family is going to be part of the process automatically. But we need to fight, and I would love to meet both of you. I'm on the Law and Redress Committee of the NAACP for Silicon Valley, San Jose. I know
Mr. James, you have another 30 seconds, please.
Aram, I think you need to unmute on your end.
again, I am available to talk about Penal Code 745 or anything to do with the criminal justice system. People, and I do it pro per for anybody in the community that feels that they're being railroaded by the criminal and justice system, by the police and the community. My phone number is 415-370-5056. I don't represent people in court, but I get them to the right place. Hopefully, I'm always available to chat with you. Wonderful young people have done extraordinary work. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. We have no more hands, Chair.
We'd like to thank both Wesley and Yasmin. This is the first, but hopefully it will not be the last time. And we're grateful for your work. Please continue because your community needs you more than you know. So thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to ask the commission to do two things. Can we get a vote on approving the minutes for? I know, I got a quorum. I'm working this thing through. We're gonna get out of here and at 36, look at this. Well, maybe 40. Can I get a motion for October 12th?
I'll move to approve the minutes from October 12th.
We have a second? All right, Commissioner Kelsey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Eberly?
Aye.
Commissioner Krause?
Aye.
Chair Smith, I don't even have to say aye, it's already passed. Aye, it's unanimous. Let's move on. City official report. Okay, staff.
That's me. I just wanted to give you an update if you didn't read it on the paper about the safe parking ordinance and changes to that went to council on Monday night. So the ordinance did pass. It'll go for a second reading probably in 2 to 3 weeks. The specific things the council asked staff to look into is they directed staff to explore expansion of the safe parking program at Gang Road. That's the site that has the RVs. They refer to the Planning and Transportation Commission consideration of expanding safe parking programs to commercial lots. I believe that came up at your joint study session with the PTC.
Yes.
At this point, safe parking sites for the vehicles at the faith-based institutions can have 4 vehicles. They are putting in a mechanism if they have been successful with 4 vehicles, they can ask to have 2 more and then the next year another 2 more, so up to 8. There will be an opportunity for public input on that. And they asked for just some more information on unhoused and data and so forth. So that was that went on Monday night. I want to thank Commissioner Kraus and Commissioner Shea, who helped on the review of the applicants for the Human Services Needs Assessment. We did decide to go with one group. I can't say who it is because the contract is not in place yet. So, and I'm not sure they've been officially
Notified.
notice the group that we decided to go with. So wanted to let you know that they will be getting going probably in January. That's all I had, Chair.
Okay. Thank you so much. Commissioner reports.
I attended the Interfaith Vigil and the tree lighting and Councilmember Lithcott Hames housing education event.
Thank you. Any other commissioner reports?
I attended.
Microphone.
I will. I attended the rally and met with the mayor there.
Good. All right. Just a note about our next meeting. Next meeting on the advisement of staff and who am I? City lawyer, staff and city lawyer, Molly. We will be doing our next meeting in January. Generally, the first item on the meeting in January is election of new officers. The first item for our meeting in January will be the Jewish community dealing with anti-Semitism. After that item, we will hold the election. We felt it would not be fair to have a new chair. Have the first item they do is that. So that is the only change, and I would like to add an action item at the end of that to deal with both suggestions from both communities, both the Muslim and Arab community and Jewish community, to move forward with any action items that were presented by both communities as that. Are there any other items that we would like to add for our January meeting?
Just what was already on it, Chair. So Palo Alto Mediation Program wants to come talk about trends in education. If as we work through the schedule, if it looks to be too much, then we might reschedule that. And also the city's new diversity, inclusion, and equity manager, Kojo Pierce, wants to come meet you all. So that could be January or February, but we can talk about that more at agenda planning.
Let's do this. Let's push Palo Alto mediation to February. If we how long did we go tonight? 2.5?
Yeah, almost 3.
Almost 4.
Almost 4, yeah.
What was the first agenda item 2? How long was that? 2.5 hours? Okay. I think we should have Kojo introduce himself and then do the second item and then do the elections.
Okay.
I think
we can talk more. Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't want him to sit here for 6 hours, or we could give him practice either way. I don't know. All right. Please enjoy whatever holiday you celebrate. Please spend it with family, and please take a break. Enjoy. I will see everybody in January. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.